Steven Crowder went out to do his thing where he debates college students, but doesn't call it a debate because
it's changed my mind.
If he calls it a debate, then people say, "Why are you debating college students? Why don't you debate an adult who knows that who knows what they're talking about?" Even though you go in completely with all of your talking points settled, and then just
ambush them on their campus,
yeah, or invite them in with with that. But it is an ambush. And some guy on Twitter went in, recorded his conversation with I think he's a DSA member from Austin, I believe. Folks can find my Twitter. I can't find the name right off the top. Sorry, I think it's I want to say
it's like Stephen Monachelli.
Okay, and people can hear it. He posted his audio on there, and he brought up a good point, which was, what about intersex? Like, if you're so concerned about there being two genders, two sexes, what about intersex? And Crowder's response
something like 1% to 2% of the population.
It's actually closer to 0.01%, between 0.01 and 0.02% of the population.
Amnesty says 1.7, but
no, 1.7 I think is a subset of that number.
Okay,
but nevertheless, let's just call it 0.01%, which is what Crowder said, and I have no reason to believe that that's not the case. The governor of Utah today vetoed a bill about transgender students playing in sports. Now, Crowder said, we don't have to worry about intersex people in this, even though it completely shatters his argument, the existence of 0.0000001 person who's intersex destroys his argument that there are only two genders. Because if there is one person who is born, who is not fitting into these two, this dichotomy, then he's wrong. But he says we can ignore that because it's such a small number of people. The governor of Utah today vetoed that transgender bill because there are 75,000 student athletes in his state, and there are 4 transgender students. Do the math. 0.0005% or something like that.
4 transgender students playing high school sports.
Playing high school sports.
1 transgender student playing girls sports.
Okay. But the point being, if you take 75,000, or if you take the number 4 and you divide it by 75,000, somebody get your calculator out. I'm convinced that's significantly smaller than 0.01%. I think it's 0.005%. So by Steven Crowder's own reasoning,
Steven Crowder math,
and I delivered this here because Steven Crowder would never engage on this debate, then every moment of energy he has spent on his program, never mind over the years, just probably this week, on the issue of transgender athletes, is completely a magnitude of maybe 5, 10, 100, 1,000 times more overblown than the existence of intersex people that he dismisses because it's so small it doesn't matter.
And I mean, this is the central question, and we talked about this a bit on the show yesterday. Are we playing a clip or
no? There's no clip associated.
Okay,
with this. I mean, he'll come out with it soon, and when he does, we'll do it again.
But fine. Well, this is a pre response to that. Like the central question is this: we don't know if there's a competitive advantage in these case by case basis, right? There's probably maybe, but it's very unlikely that that's the case, in my opinion. But fine, if you want to have that debate on the right, and if you're in the middle on this issue, okay, you can concede that point. But the competitive advantage, even if, I mean, I don't even know if that's the case, but even if you want to claim it's definitely the case in those specific sporting events, are you really going to claim that outweighs and is more important than overall inclusion of trans kids and people in society. That's what you're going to claim. That's what you're going to hang your hat on when, sorry, go on.
Oh, I was just going to say, like, there's two more numbers that the governor said. 86% of trans youth reporting suicidality. 56% of trans youth have attempted suicide. All these people that are pushing this stuff do not care if any of these kids commit suicide or attempt it. They do not care at all. That's how ghoulish these folks are.
They kind of want it. I mean, like, they want to bully trans kids out of existence. This is the central question: is, are you going to say that the competitive advantage that you're pretending exists, or you say has, like, you have scientific evidence for, in these swim meets or in these specific sporting events, is more important than widespread acceptance of trans kids? Which, if you were, actually intellectually honest about this, widespread acceptance of trans kids would hopefully lead to more hormone therapy. And so kids can get access to gender affirming care when they're much younger. And so then this wouldn't be an issue whatsoever. But that's not and also engaging in this and axing and getting rid of these discriminatory bills in states like Texas, which block kids from getting gender affirming care. I mean, that's something that you need to reckon with as well. But the point is just that you can't make the claim that the former is more important than the latter.
Oh, but the point is, the reason why they attack, the reason why they have a problem with trans kids, adults in sports, is because they don't want it normalized.
Yeah.
That is exactly what it is. And that is really, and I think it's just the other side of what you're saying. If you have people that you need to, if you are talking to people and you're trying to explain to them why, this is so overblown, it is a question of numbers, and you compare it relative to the number of intersex, which is significantly higher in this country than the number of trans athletes trying to play sports. But then the other issue is, you say the reason why this is getting so much attention by the right is because they want to make sure it is their agenda to stigmatize, to make the other, to isolate and alienate trans people. And that is the agenda. That is the entire agenda. And that's the argument. Do you want to do that? Are you against trans people being accepted and not stigmatized and not growing up feeling suicidal, being suicidal, killing themselves,
excluded, just
being beaten by other people? That's really the choice you have.
Or do you care more about competitive advantages in specific sports? Because, like, what's then to say, it's really unfair that this 7-foot kid is able to play basketball. I mean, the rest of the kids are 5'10". The rest of the kids are 6 feet tall.
It's not like it's not like the hoop adjusts based upon who's coming up to it.
Exactly.
Like, how is it fair that if the average basketball player is 6'2", that somebody can come by and be 7 feet and play at the same basket?
This offensive lineman is 50 pounds heavier in this sport.
Yeah, to be fair, I do want to exclude children of wealth from playing in sports because they got too much free gym time. But yeah,
I mean, it's just like, this is, again, like, we talked about this a little yesterday, and this is my final point here. Biological determinism is a really, it's a slippery slope, and the stakes for high school sports could not be lower, and the stakes for acceptance for trans kids in society could not be higher. And trans kids, intersex, non-binary people have existed throughout history for centuries and centuries and centuries and centuries. And yet, the right in this country is naturalizing competitive high school or middle school sports and saying they're so sacrosanct, we cannot make an adjustment here in order to further society and make it more accepting for trans kids. And that's like, you're just a reactionary, and you're also a bigot. And if you and the people who are, engaging in this debate and being like, well, they have a point, it's not really fair to this girl or this athlete, like, you are just adding and benefiting and helping reactionaries here, because that's not the point. And they're picking on this very hot button issue for a reason, and it's just to alienate trans kids and further try to separate them from society, as Sam was saying.